Hi friends, welcome back. I'm Kim, the lifelong reader, and today you and I are going on a deep dive into one of my favorite novels. That is Stormy Weather by Paulette Jiles. If you love lyrical historical fiction, you're in for a treat today. As the novel opens, we're in the mid-1930s, following the Stoddard family across Texas as Mr. Stoddard moves looking for available work in the oil industry. We are deep in the Great Depression, a time when 15 million able-bodied men were out of work and many families were uprooted. While the story includes Jack the father, Elizabeth the mother, Mame the eldest daughter, and Bee the youngest daughter, Jiles puts the story's focus on the middle child, Janine. We see quickly that Janine's childhood is complicated by her father's troubles. When we meet her at the age of 9, she is playing part keeper and part confidant to her father, while he drinks and bets on horses, both activities which have interrupted the flow of money into the family home and caused strife. Janine, nicknamed Pistol by her father, is a tag-along to him, and she does her best to prevent him from getting himself into more trouble than their family can handle. She remains a witness to his recklessness over the years as he edges this family closer and closer to breaking. Eventually, their circumstances shift, and the Stoddard women must depend on each other. These and other early experiences frame Janine's ideas of men, marriage, and traditional female roles in ways which we watch play out in the novel. She not only looks closely at the men in her life, she also looks at their wives and wonders silently if they are, and how they could, be happy in the choices they've made. While her cousin and older sister look ahead in their lives and see a marriage and a job in the city, Janine daydreams of a different life, one where she immerses herself in rescuing the Stoddard family homestead from decay, pledging her loyalty to a place which has stood the test of time in exchange for dependence on someone who she expects will eventually disappoint and possibly destroy her. Ultimately, Stormy Weather is about Janine coming to terms with what this desire means for a young woman in the late years of the Depression, and it's also about Janine aiming herself towards this chosen life and eventually considering the possibility of losing it. Paulette Jiles was a poet, a memoirist, and a novelist, and it's her blend of all three that make her writing speak so deeply to me. As this novel opens, we see Janine riding home in a horse-drawn wagon with her father. He's hungover from the night before. The imagery is strong in the writing as Janine likens the reins to telegraph lines held within her father's battered hands, speaking to the horses in silent code. These are the same hands we watched a moment earlier, shaking as they lit a cigarette at his lips. They're the same hands that Janine, a few lines later, describes as scarred from being knocked around by engine cranks, coffin hoists, and the wagon jack. Mr. Stoddard soon takes Janine into his confidence by sneaking a drink on their way home from a hidden bottle, which he then asks her to find a new place to hide. The writing is lush and descriptive without being overly so. There are some sparse sentences, especially in the sections with dialogue, but Giles's writing style allowed me to not only see these characters come to life, but to feel their emotions through their experiences, which is one of the things that I love most about being a reader. The setting and historical time period bring an edge to this novel, notably in the way the farmers and ranchers dealt with their animals during the Depression, especially as the situation worsened because the drought lagged on for so long. There are playful and lighthearted moments in the novel to bring a smile to your face and maybe even make you laugh a time or two. Young Janine, at first glance, is somewhat of a tomboy, but as the years advance, we see her interest in the other sex begin to bloom. She has a dry and playfully abrasive wit that she never loses, and it's funny, but its most interesting aspect is how the men around her respond to it. The themes of family and relationships between men and women are thought-provoking, and they had me contemplating similar themes in my own life. Stormy Weather is a hopeful story, tilted against the challenge of not only the times, the economic pressures, but the expectation of what a woman's life could or even should be in the late 1930s. Now, I realize it may be out of fashion for some of you, but I use Goodreads to track my reading and also to gauge how other readers are responding to the books I plan to read. Overall, on Goodreads, this novel is at 3 3/4 stars. I've found that if I read through a few 5-star reviews, followed by a few 1-star reviews, I come away with a pretty good idea of whether the book is a read for me or not. This 5-star review, while it wasn't written by me, pretty much sums up what my reading experience of this book was like. I too immediately looked up Paulette's backlist and read another of her novels. However, as readers, we are all diverse in what sparks enjoyment of a novel in our mind, and you can see from these 1-star reviews that some readers really struggled with finding the story and would probably better enjoy novels with a more plot-driven writing style. This is definitely a novel to savor. I found myself rereading passages which really helped solidify the images in my mind and also fostered connections to other parts of the story that if I were reading too fast, I may have missed. Likely what this reader calls too much unimportant info and not enough relevant story content. Though there is plenty of action with excellent pacing, this is quite a character-driven novel, and it will likely disappoint you if you're expecting a plot-driven story. Another very geeky way that I gauge how fruitful a reading experience is for me is based upon how often I have to look up a word while I'm reading. I know, super nerd here. Reading a novel can enrich my life by enhancing my vocabulary or even just lighting my curiosity. I am all for that. This novel had me looking up quite a few words, most of which were unfamiliar to me, I think probably due to the time and place of the novel. And again, I'm not sure that any of these will come in handy in my everyday life, but sometimes just the act of looking up a definition to foster a deeper understanding of a story is all I need to scratch my deep reading itch. This book would probably be best for someone who enjoys beautifully written historical fiction, which is mostly character-driven. There is certainly tension and conflict, but our novel isn't overly focused on plot. There are multiple bits of history here too. I learned much more about the Comanche Indians than I'd expected, and I appreciated learning about the history of the land where the Stoddard homestead was built. If any of that intrigues you, give Paulette Jiles and Stormy Weather a try. This may be your first Jiles novel, but it likely won't be your last. Also, come back and let me know if you read it and how you felt about it. I'd be honored to know. If you like this video, drop me a like and check out this next video right here. And as always, happy reading.